As America goes, so goes the world. Now, you've heard me say this well-known truth before, but growing up in this beautiful country in the 50s and 60s, it took at least 10 to 20 years for New Zealand to follow America. In other words, to catch up. And with the advent of television, the catch-up dropped from 5 to 10 years, and today with social media, maybe it's down to 2 or 3 or even less. Be it fashion, culture, language, morals, etc. Obviously, America has both been good and bad in relation to the influence on the world. In many ways, it's upheld Christian values and principles, and yet on the other hand, we see the increasingly ungodly rubbish that has come out of Hollywood, that has now sadly corrupted the world, particularly the minds of young people. Now, we all know what happened on November the 5th, a clean sweep by Donald J. Trump. Now, let's just mention, like many European countries, currently there's a massive swing back to conservative values, and the left hate it. A saying, a swing back to what is really common sense. In other words, the American people are sick and fed up with all the liberalism, all the loony left, in other words, and the woke agenda. For example, the average person does not want any longer the Bidens of this world, the Harrises, the Cheneys, fueling wars around the world, making huge profits. When the last time Donald Trump was in the presidency, he brokered the Abrahamic peace agreement in the Middle East against all odds. The Biden administration messed it up, but people want peace, and they sure hope that Donald Trump can bring peace to the world just as he did last time. America does not want their country any longer flooded with illegal immigrants corrupting their country. Young couples want to be able to buy a house. Families want to put food on their table. Common sense thinking people do not want men playing in girls' sports, and they do not want men in their daughters' bathrooms. Common sense people, they don't want teachers, the state encouraging their kids in transgenderism. And unbelievably, the school being able to change a kid's name and changing their sex without informing the parents, madness. The common sense people do not want any longer the DEI. They're over it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want the best person for the job, the best doctor, the best pilot, the best electrician, and so forth. No matter what color of their skin or no matter what sex they are, they're sick of seeing the homeless filling the streets and the feces and the garbage piling up. The drug addicts dying on the pavement, myriads of needles being cast away in parks and on footpaths. The violence, the crime, the murders, the rapes. The average person wants to turn back to law and order. The common sense person does not want to defund the police. They do not want racism and division. Neither do they want the globalists or the Hollywood elites telling them what to do. I hear Oprah Winfrey was paid over $1 million to endorse Kamala Harris. Can you believe that? Beyonce paid tens of thousands. That's crazy. The election overwhelmingly declared the above. And they don't want the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization to tell them what to do. They don't want the ECG, the environmental social governance, ruining their lives. Here in New Zealand, like America, like the States, I believe there's an awakening of people back to good old-fashioned morals, conservative values, and the principles that we had when our country was at peace and flourished. We want peace. We want prosperity. We don't want the flag-waving Palestinian protesters who understand nothing about the situation in the Middle East. I think about the influence that immigrants are having on our nation. Now, it's not the people, but other religions, their gods, their Hindu temples, their Buddhist statues, and their mosques. And we also face the challenge of the rise of the so-called ancient gods of the land under the guise of culture. Many are waking up to the spiritual dynamics that are at play here and the influence that these gods and religions are having on a nation. Yet unfortunately, many are still sadly asleep to that influence, just as our Prime Minister is. He goes along and participates in their rituals with the red dot on his forehead and lifting up his hands in worship in front of a Buddha statue. As I've sadly mentioned, he is ignorant of the spiritual implications of this. Look at our nation unraveling at its seams. Society has become lawless. Daily there's another murder, rape, burglary. It goes on. And the talkback is full of the question, what is wrong with our nation? Well, the answer is simple. You want to see my last post in the quotation there. This was once a Christian nation, once called God's own with God's blessing. But the nation has turned away from Christ. As a good book says, blessed is a nation whose God is the Lord. Do we want God's blessing or not? But now, unfortunately, we are now seeing the consequences of the influence of these and other false gods in our land. I see Iraq, a Muslim nation, they're now discussing an amendment to the law to lower the marrying age for girls to 9 years of age. Can you imagine an immigrant coming and bringing his child bride to New Zealand? What are you going to do? Are you going to break up a family? In other immigrant cultures, we have seen the hideous demonic bride burning ritual happen right here in New Zealand. People coming here should have to abide in our Kiwi society and live in our culture and leave their gods behind. I'm not against immigration, of course, but I am against the spiritual implication of their religions. This is what America is now asking for. We may not have people crossing into our borders, our country illegally, due to our wall of the ocean around us, but we're inviting them here by the thousands, creating housing shortages, unaffordable prices for the average Kiwi couple. And so now we have many Kiwis sadly heading to Australia. And while I can't say I blame them for wanting to leave, I have to say, although the grass may look green on the other side of the fence, over there it is just as hard to mow. It's not all peaches and cream over there, but Australia has just introduced a digital ID. And now the Misinformation Act, with the government determining what is truth and what is not. Hello, Jacinda. Now, I'm not against, as I said, legal immigration, people coming here, but what has to be good for the country. We want families to put food on the table. We want have no poverty in our nation. We do not want to have, the banking elites, the unelected governor of the Reserve Bank openly driving this country into recession, pushing up high interest rates. Common sense must prevail. Can I also say that the average Kiwi is sick of all this transgenderism? The media, they push and promote gay couples doing this, doing that, buying a house together. Look at this couple, whoopee-doo. Now, they're promoting a transgender couple having a baby, airing it on our television in prime time, paid for, by the way, by our taxes. Every normal, average thinking New Zealander knows that this is not normal, this is not right. We're sick of it being promoted and pushed on us by a liberal lying media and an agenda that's causing our young people to go down paths that they're going to regret. The common sense person knows that it's not normal for a transgender couple to be having babies. Now, we do not want men playing in women's sports, nor do we want men in girls' bathrooms. We too, like the USA, are over this whole DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We Kiwis do not want, to see the sad homeless people covering our cities and our towns, people living in cars, under bridges, kids going to school without food in their belly. New Zealand does not want the drugs and the violence, the burglary, the rapes and the murder and epidemics that we are currently seeing every day. I know this can sound bad news, but the reality, wake up, people. We're over it. The average Kiwi does not like all this racism that's happening. Look at it right now today. The division, the demand for a separate government, separate health system, separate court system for an exclusive race of people. All this nonsensical talk about colonialism, white privilege, by many people, by the way, who look as white as I am. But I wish we could all understand that we are all made in the image of God. And I wish we could all understand that we all bleed red. We need to believe that we are one people moving forward. We won't no longer be fooled by words like women's health care, women's reproductive rights. We know that now is abortion, the killing of babies. It sounds harsh, and I know it is, but most people realize and know and are aware that there's a baby, a human being in the womb, that they are wanting to abort. So the liberals have to change the language, just like the word gay. That once had nothing to do with sexuality, by the way. When I was growing up, it meant happy. It meant fun. That was what a gay person was. Now the language have been stolen, just like the rainbow, and we're over it. Yeah, many people are over it. Many people are getting fed up with what is being cancelled and all this disinformation talk. The globalists, the surveillance, the elites, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and Big Pharma, and the Bill Gates, the George Soroses of this world. We don't want them, and people are waking up. We don't want the digital currency here in New Zealand, the facial recognition, following our every move, the mandated jabs. We don't want the ESG or the DEI agendas. We need politicians who will stand up, speak up for the people. Will those in Wellington who we have now be brave enough, strong enough, convicted enough? Or do we need a clean out like the Trump phenomena that has been brought into the United States? Our left-based media are going on about Trump having unbridled power, especially if he gets the House along with the Senate. But the truth is, listen now, that is what the US has voted for. It would be like one of our parties having the majority, not needing the other mighty parties to govern. It has happened before heaps of times, unbridled power. It's just inflammatory headlines. So like so many headlines, no wonder people are over the mainstream media. That is why the mainstream media are going broke. Nobody wants to listen to them any longer. They don't report the news, they make the news. I know many New Zealanders may not like Trump's personality. They may not like his way of speaking. And yes, he's got a colourful past, but God uses imperfect people. If he does as good as he did last time when he was president in America, America will be better off and so will the world. The Trump train is about to leave the station, and if you don't get on board, you may just be left behind. Myself, along with Brian Tamaki and others, are speaking at the Domain this Saturday on the 16th at 12 p.m. I'd love you to join us. There's a promo right here. This will be another link in the chain to raise awareness for common sense, for a country that is free from tyranny, hatred and bigotry. This is how now rife in our country. We may not agree on every issue, and I'm sure the majority would agree that we're heading in the wrong direction. So why am I doing this? Why is Brian doing this? I can't necessarily speak for him, but for both of us, and me more than him, we're now in our senior years, but we're speaking up for the coming generations. We want them to have a great and a prosperous and a free and a godly nation. That's what we want them to grow up and enjoy just as we had in our earlier years. Brian spent 10 days in jail standing up for freedom, and in this week, unbelievably, has to stand before the courts again for the freedom of expression, freedom to gather. So just as America has hopefully turned the page, it may take a couple of years for that to happen here in New Zealand, but sooner or later, New Zealand will return to morality, common sense, peace, and I believe that will happen. The pendulum has swung too far. I believe for the future, the better future for all of us in our wonderful country of New Zealand. So in closing, to the liberal, left, loony people who are thinking of moving to New Zealand following Donald Trump's victory, do not move here, because we are heading in the same direction, because as America goes, so goes the world.